Hi everybody, today we're going to talk about how to find the volume of prisms and cylinders. We are going to use a formula for volume. The formula is volume equals big B times little h. So what does this formula mean and how do we get it? Well, depending on the shape that you're looking at, what we want to do is think about volume. Volume is the amount of space that occupies the inside of a three-dimensional shape. So if I look at this cylinder right here, and I think about if I'm going to pour a liquid into the cylinder, what is going to fill up first? Well, the bottom is going to fill up, right? And so what we say is that it fills up the bottom, and then what happens? Well, the liquid starts rising, right, all the way up the height of the cylinder. So what we need to do is we take the area of the base, because that's what filled up first, and then we multiply it by the height of the cylinder. That is what this formula means. The volume is big B, which stands for the area of the base, times the height of the actual object. Now this will work with any type of prism or cylinder. So if we look at the next picture, I have a rectangular prism here. If I think about when I'm pouring a liquid into this prism, what's going to fill up first is the bottom. So we have the area of this rectangle. Area of a rectangle is length times width. And then it continues to fill up to the height of the prism. So again, area of the base times the height. And then lastly, with our triangular prism, the same thing happens. So if I look at the base of my triangular prism, it's a triangle. This is what's going to fill up first. So the area of a triangle is 1/2 of the base times the height. And then we're going to go and fill up the rest of the prism, so the height of the prism itself. Now let's go ahead and walk through an example where we have some actual numbers. Here we have a rectangular prism. The formula again is volume equals big B times h, where big B stands for the area of the base. So let's take a look at our rectangular prism and find the base. Here it is. So it is a rectangle, and you're going to need to just know the formula for area of a rectangle. The area of a rectangle is length times width. So if we come over here to where we're going to use our formula, we have the volume equals the big B times h. So in this case, the area of the base is length times width. And then we have the height of the prism that we also need to multiply by. So right now what I'd like you to do is pause the video and go ahead and finish finding the volume for this rectangular prism. Then play the video to check your answer. All right, so here's what I have with my numbers plugged in. So my final answer, the volume is going to be 1,040. And then we need to give this answer a proper label. So we have centimeters, but since we were finding volume and we multiplied 3 dimensions together, we multiplied the length, the width, and the height, we say that this is centimeters cubed. So volume is always going to be a number with centimeters cubed or inches cubed or miles cubed, depending on what it's measured in. All right, now let's go ahead and do an example with a triangular prism. Again, we're going to use the same formula. The volume is equal to big B times h, where big B is the area of the base. All right, so in this case, since we are looking at a triangular prism, the base is the triangle. Now this formula for area of a triangle is just one that you need to know. So a triangle is really half of a rectangle. So if the area of a rectangle, just draw one here real quick, is length times width, if we want half of that because we just want a triangle, then that means our formula is 1/2 of the length times the width. Or with triangles, we usually use the term base and height. Base times height. Notice that the b is a little b and not a big B. Okay, so now let's go back to our formula. So we have volume equals big B times H. Now let's fill in some information. So the area of the base. So we said the area of the base is 1/2 of the length times the width, or the base times the height. And then we have the height of the prism itself. Okay, so what I would like you to do is see if you can go ahead and plug in the correct numbers into your formula here. So I am noticing that down here on our bottom triangle, there aren't any numbers. So you can also look at the top base to get the numbers. All right, go ahead and pause the video, see if you can do it. All right, so here I have my numbers filled in. So the area of the base ends up being 35, and then I have times the height of the prism, which is times 7. So my volume is 245 inches cubed. And that's my final answer. All right, let's go ahead and walk through one more together. This time we're going to look at a cylinder, and again using the same formula where big B is the area of the base. So in this case, when we look at our cylinder, the base is a circle. So the area of a circle, see if you can remember what that formula is. Area of a circle, pi r squared. No, pi r round. No, in this formula, the pi r squared. So that's what area is. So V is equal to the area of the base, which is going to be pi r squared, and then times the height of the cylinder. All right, your turn. Pause the video, see if you can fill in your numbers into the correct places and solve for the volume. Now I want to stop at this point really quick because I want to point out that when you take 3.14 times 4 to the second power, remember you have to use order of operations. So this exponent 4 to the second power you need to do first. 4 times 4 is 16, and then times 3.14. So then finishing off the problem, we end up with 1,004 8/10 centimeters cubed. Okay, so now it's your turn to go ahead and try a few on your own from scratch. Think about the formula that you're going to use. Remember, the formula is the same for each of these. Volume equals big B times H. It's totally fine to go back to one of the previous examples or use your notes to help you do numbers 1, 2, and 3. So pause the video at this time and then go ahead and try number 1. And then play the video to check your answer for number 1, and then you'll pause the video to try number 2. So go ahead and try number 1. Okay, here we are with the answer to number 1. So the volume is the area of the base, which is a rectangle. So that's length times width for the rectangle. Length times width, so 6 times 2.5, and then times the height of the prism, so times 3. So we get 45 feet cubed. All right, go ahead and pause the video again, and this time try number 2. All right, now number 2 can look slightly confusing because if you notice the triangle is, or the triangular prism is actually on its side. However, the bases are still the 2 triangles that are on the ends. So when we say find the area of the base, you are finding the area of this triangle, which is 1/2 base times height. So if you notice in my formula, I have 1/2 of the base times the height, which is 1/2 of 1.5 times 4. And then the other h, the times the height of the prism. The height of the prism is really just the distance between the two bases, which would be 5. So go ahead and pause the video and finish this one if you haven't finished it yet. If you're already done, then continue listening to check your answer. Okay, and here we go. Here's the answer to number 2. It is 15 feet cubed. All right, and the last one, number 3, go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out the volume of the cylinder. All right, here is the answer for the volume of the cylinder, 351.68 inches cubed. If you did not get that answer, go back and take a look and see if you did 4 to the second power before you multiplied by 3.14. Again, using those order of operations first. You can't do 3.14 times 4. You have to do 4 times 4 and then times 3.14. All right, that's it for today's lesson. Hopefully you understand the volume of prisms and cylinders. Thanks.